is Jesus, and I will tell you things He has done for me.
You are listening to Lagoon Radio.
Ask me why I love Him.
Beautiful afternoon to you once again. You are still listening to Lagoon Radio, your number one online radio station in Nigeria. We're broadcasting from the very heart of Lagos Marina. Don't forget to follow us on all our social media platforms, on Facebook at Lagoon Radio Nigeria, at Lagoonradio.Ng. Don't forget, we'll be right back shortly. Just a minute.
You are listening to Lagoon Radio.
His name is Jesus. He's unmoved, unchanged, and undefeated. Tasted and trusted.
You are listening to Lagoon Radio.
Yes, you're still listening to Lagoon Radio, your number one online radio station in Nigeria. So to download the app, don't forget to visit us on Google Play Store or your Apple Store. Download the app on your Google Play Store or your Apple Store to listen to us from wherever you are in the world and to listen to the live broadcast currently going on right now. Yes, just about now is the Family Matters with K show. You know how we do it from the hours of 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. here on Lagoon Radio. We educate, entertain, and inform you on everything related to family issues. That is, everything pertaining to every member of the family, a man, a woman, children, youth, adolescents, teens. We discuss it here on Family Matters with K. So to join the conversation for today, follow us on all our social media platforms, on Facebook at Lagoon Radio Nigeria. Subscribe to our YouTube channel LagoonTV, on Instagram and on Twitter at LagoonRadio.Ng. You can also put a voice to the conversation and join the conversation here on Lagoon Radio by dialing 08189 Lagoon 524-666. I repeat, 08189524666. That is the number to call to join the conversation for today. And on today's episode of Family Matters with K, we'll be discussing a very important and vital topic pertaining to the family. You don't want to miss out what we had last week, because I'll be reminding you. On last week's episode, we discussed the importance of setting healthy screen limits for your phones. That is, for whatever device or app that you're using, it's very important that you have healthy. You should set screen times to them. You know, most of these apps also come with the screen limits. It helps you reduce the number of hours you spend on phone. It helps you reduce your addictions to phone usage and all of that. And it also helps you balance your day and balance your mental health. We'll be going on a quick break, and when we get back, I'll be jumping straight into what I have for you this beautiful afternoon. Don't go nowhere. Follow us on all our social media platforms. Don't forget, you must keep your fingers crossed, because yes, today's topic is nothing but what you should not miss. Stick around, don't go nowhere. My name is Olumakaiye, your humble host.
You are listening to Lagoon Radio. You are listening to Lagoon Radio.
Yes, I was obviously grooving to our instrumental right there. Don't forget, you're still listening to Lagoon Radio, your number one online radio station in Nigeria. And right about now, we are still discussing here on Family Matters with K. Another beautiful and exciting episode, like I earlier introduced, which is yes, understanding versus compromise in marriage. What's the difference between understanding in marriage? What's the difference between compromising in marriage? These are two interrelated words used in marriage among spouses, even amongst children, and every other member of the family. So there's a place of understanding and there's a place of compromise in marriage and among spouses. But however the case may be, don't settle for his way, don't settle for our way. Find a better way and learn how to negotiate and communicate with your spouse for a better and happy marriage. So I just basically stated the terms of understanding and compromise when it comes to marital issues and when two people are communicating. Compromise is a necessary part of any successful marriage, and for two people to work together as a team, each person has to give and take once in a while. Yes, because it takes two to tango, and life is not all about win-win situation. We have win-lose situations. But truthfully, many of us have no idea of how to compromise. So personally, ask yourself, in your marriage, how do you compromise? What are the things that you put down for the happiness of your spouse? What are the things that you should put down? What are the things that you consider fit to be down for your spouse? Relationship can get quickly degrading into feelings of dissatisfaction and discord, and not to mention a disillusionizing sense of being all alone in a relationship. So all of these things are things that we consider as me-centric thinking quickly, which transforms into consider that is you and your partner, the we getting to understand each other. That is you and your partner, we pronoun, getting to understand each other. And this can be so linear and intuitive at times, and it works, but just gradually, with steps by step. So you don't really have to quit your happiness to make your partner happy. No, I will not advise you to quit what makes you happy. We had a conversation that actually gendered me to bring this topic on board for everyone out there, every member of the family. As a spouse, if you're like as the female or the wife of the family, if social media, for instance, like I said, we had a conversation round about this topic, and if the lady came up to say that, oh, social media is what makes her happy and she's ready to take down all her social media accounts for the happiness of her husband. But talking to someone or a woman who makes money off social media, who is a social media influencer, who is a media enthusiast, and makes so much money, and aside even money, the passion, the drive, and what makes her happy in question is asked to be put in line or put aside. Do you actually think that is a good compromise? Do you think that will make her happy? So as a man, how will you reason on this line also if your wife is telling you completely to put down or put away football or something that that you can't definitely do without? This is a place of understanding. This is a place of a striking balance between both spouses and couples. So moving on, we'll be discussing on tips on how to compromise in a relationship and steps you need to take to strike a healthy balance and come to a place of understanding, because above all, irrespective of the fact that we have love in question, understanding is the most important factor in marriage. If two individuals cannot tango, then there's no understanding and there's no love in their midst, because it only takes two to tango. Don't forget, you're still listening to Lagoon Radio, number one online radio station in Nigeria, brought to you and powered, sponsored by the Diocese of Lagos Anglican Communion. Download the app to join the conversations. Download the app on your Google Play Store or your Apple Store to listen to us from wherever you are in the world. And also, don't forget to follow us on all our social media platforms. Join the conversation on 08189 524 That is the number to call to join the phone conversations for today. Still discussing on tips and how to compromise in your marriage. The first step you need to take to compromise in your marriage is to communicate your needs clearly. Use the I statements to communicate with your spouse exactly what you need and what you want in a relationship. You might say, I want to live in this city, but it's closer to my work. That is, even your location or decision of where you want to live can be something that you have to compromise. If the husband is working on the island and the wife is working on the mainland, you cannot say, oh, both have to come to great terms of where are we going to live that will be convenient for both parties. Don't say, oh, because my husband is working on the mainland, okay, let's go and move. Let's stay on the mainland. Or because my wife is working on the island, let's stay on the island. You have to come to a tangible conclusion and reasonable means of what will both suit both parties, not in favor of anybody. That is a scenario I just painted. So also do not it's important to speak for yourself without making assumptions about your spouse's needs or wants, and also express what you want and why you want them. This is very important in a relationship. It's important that you stand your ground respectfully, not disrespectfully, especially women, because this may seem counterintuitive to the concept of thinking as we, like the pronoun you and your spouse. But it is imperative that you do not lose your own sense of identity to it, because you may be able to check it for yourself. First and foremost, validate those personal needs and desires. So another thing you should also do when trying to, compromise and come to a place of understanding with your spouse is for you to interrupt. Sorry, my apologies. Listen without interrupting. That is the right thing. Listen without interrupting. So after you've made your points clear, after you've communicated, okay, you know what, babes, we cannot stay on the island. We have to stay on the mainland for so reasons, without necessarily, without you being in favor, without that situation not being too much in your favor. You can always listen, and after you've expressed your desires, offer an explanation of why something is important to you. Give your spouse a chance to respond, because you need to allow them to speak. You need to hear their opinion without interrupting. You also need to pay attention to what they are saying, and do not try to dismiss their thoughts immediately. Disagreements are best resolved when each person's needs are assumed to be legitimate and very important. This is very important because, when arguments pop, you should listen without interrupting. So if your partner responds to a detailed counterpoint, then you should repeat what you heard without malice, and for you to be on the same page, because this is where understanding comes to play. Another thing you should do to strike a balance for understanding versus compromise in marriage is for you to carefully weigh your options. Okay, if you're going to, for instance, using the scenario I painted of where you want to reside, newlyweds, for instance, your husband works on the mainland, your wife works on the island. Which is closer? Which part of the island will be convenient for you guys? Which part of the mainland will be convenient for you guys? Whatever conclusion you guys are going to come to play must benefit both parties. And you must carefully weigh all options. Consider your options and remember that there are more than two options. Very important issues for everybody. You can live in the city and live in suburbs of the area, but you cannot just, let one party's choice overcome the other. You just have to be on the same page and understand each other. Another thing for you to do in a place of compromise is to put yourself in your partner's shoes. Truly, understanding your spouse can be very difficult, especially when your own desires clouds your judgment. That is why it's important for you to step out of your mind for a moment and consider your spouse's feeling and opinion. How would they feel, or how would they be affected if they just get into you? What will be the positive and the negatives for them? Why do you think they will hold a different opinion of what you hold? What kind of sacrifices would you think you'll be making if they all went along with your ideas? So these are the ways and questions you should ask yourself when trying to compromise for a situation. And also, the fifth reason is for you to consider what is fair enough for both of you. For compromise in a marriage to work, one person cannot always be dominant. So in other words, you can't always allow yourself get your way. You can't always have your way in every situation. It's not all, like I said, it's not always a win-win situation. There's always a win-lose situation. Sometimes it might be in your favor and be in favor of your spouse. And always don't forget, you can also consider the fairness of each option. Moving to a place that will be most convenient for both of you should be the resolution, not for the fact that it's going to pay your husband or the wife. Both spouses should commute double. Will there be a frantic life? Is it fair to them? All decisions should be very fair to one another. And also, when you're trying to compromise in a situation, in any kind of situation in marriage, you should make a decision and stick with it. After you've weighed your options, you've communicated clearly, you've considered your spouse's feelings, you've considered the fairness of the situation, you can now make decisions together and stick to it. If you're completely honest while undertaking all of these steps, you should come to a resolution and you guys can approve or leave out any doubts that you may have. And finally, check in with one another. This is very important. It's a very important step, which is my last step on how to understand and combat with compromise. Checking in with one another means that there are give and takes in a relationship. One or both of you is likely to make a sacrifice or give up something for the need of the other. So if this happens to you often, don't feel like you are being taken for granted or being ignored. There is cause for resentments to build in, which can break down your marriage. So check in on one another's opinion and make sure there's no resentment or hurting feelings. Make sure that you agree to compromise, that you should hold a sacrifice for every individual's decision whenever the case comes up. We'll begin on this quick music break, and when we get back, I'll be enlightening you on more reasons why you should understand yourselves as couples or spouses. Well, more reasons why you should understand yourselves in a particular situation rather than compromising all the time. Although marriage is a game of compromise, but then understanding and striking a balance is key. Don't go nowhere, and we'll be right back.
You are listening to Lagoon Radio. You are listening to Lagoon Radio.
He's a church boy, Sam Song.
G-I-D on the beat.
The word of God in my mouth. The spirit of the Lord in my heart. When I speak in tongues, even my tithes are an offering. The name of Jesus in my mouth. He dey work, he dey work. You say he dey work. He dey work, he dey work, he dey work. People living life in a fool's paradise. Living life like a toss of a dice. Brother, if you no work for your side, it don't mean what you do is a lie. Talk about my tithe and my offering. I put my tithe, put an end to the suffering. My life be turning on the own. You say? Turning on the own. Don't talk down on the anointing. Small talk can bring you down to nothing. What you don't understand, live it. It makes no sense, so still take a step. This is our life, our culture. We are from the Commonwealth of Zion. We live by a difference of the rules. This is what we do, and this is how we rule. The word of God in my mouth. The spirit of the Lord in my heart. When I speak in tongues, even my tithes are an offering. The name of Jesus in my mouth. He dey work, he dey work. You say he dey work. He dey work, he dey work, he dey work.
Welcome back. You're still listening to that beautiful gospel song by Samsung singing A Day Walk. Yes, understanding and compromise in your marriage will definitely work out when you strike a balance of understanding to all of these things. Yes, a prayer that everything works out well when it comes to compromise and understanding, even in your marriage. Yes, so still on the topic, how to create a successful marriage without necessarily compromising. So compromise is for marriage, but never for the wine. It made me think of how culture accepts that relationship requires compromise. So reading online, compromise, no matter how difficult the situation is necessary for every part of a successful and enduring marriage. The idea that was once said, for better, for worse, we need to get used to making concessions to other persons to settle our conflict. So what if afterwards we are resentful, discouraged, disappointed, frustrated, or delusioned? Get over it, and compromise is just part of the deal. Not only is compromise not a recipe for success in relationships, but compromise is exactly why so many marriages fail. It is true while we are all very different, and conflict often occurs because these differences are not just going to go wrong, but then cause disagreements on the long run. So we always need to be unique when it comes to compromising, when it comes to understanding. However, honoring differences and learning to explore what is important to each other is part of what makes the relationship and the marriage rich, exciting, and surprising. And this is what makes compromise so unappealing. So why have we thought of compromising not working in relationships? It's because so many young people don't want to even come to a means of trying to lay down what makes them happy for the other. As a man, have you asked yourself, will I neglect my football for my wife? Will I make out time not to go and watch football today? Have you ever asked yourself that question? As a lady, will you put aside things that make you happy for your home? Will you step down of all of these things? Definitely there are sides to what we are talking about, but then there should be a place of understanding while we strike a balance to all of these things. For a man, you will not be totally addicted to your television or to your football, and you say you leave me ignored or out of the blues, me talking to myself. But then there should be a balance to everything we are all talking about. There should be a balance. There should be a balance. Compromise is only necessary when you do not extract the effort to truly understand ourselves and each other. It is a lazy way of interacting, and we have learned to get our needs met indirectly, and it trades our own happiness for another person's happiness. So instead of going the bat for a dynamic situation that far exceeds what you possibly imagine individually, we can learn to compromise and understand each other. But then when we give up for our own wishes, it backfires every time, which is certainly true. So champions what is important for each other. Two strong individuals with healthy self-esteem create the most successful relationship and marriage. They are dramatically different in every way, and these couples have a knack for championing what is important to each other. So those things that are important to you should be what will be your place of understanding. That will be what will make you guys understand each other better. So instead of settling for the less or settling on a compromise that will disappoint both of you, look for ways that both of you make yourself happy and even more thrilled, that you guys will forget that you are living one thing or the other to make out time for each other. So having limits to create within actually stimulates us to solve the problem in new ways. After we go a further step and choose to see the unlimited possibility, our creativity goes into overdrive and we find amazing solutions that we didn't even possibly find before. So this is just telling us basically that when couples and spouses have issues with compromise, they should try to recreate means of making each other happy. You might say, anytime from 8 o'clock, we're doing nothing on our phones. Okay, 8 o'clock is for us privately. 8 o'clock is our time for each other. We are doing nothing on our phones. That is a time that you both have come together on both parties. You guys are happy about. It's a joint decision. You're not leaving one thing or the other. Even before such decision stands, it will take one or two arguments, quarrel, back and forth. But then it is a good way to also make time for yourself and make each other happy. So take compromise out of your vocabulary. There was a time in marriage that there are differently things about raising children, budget extremely being tight due to financial constraints, and all of these things takes a huge backlog on all of that. So when you want a win-win situation for yourself in marriage, try to calm yourself down to see if it is necessary and try to listen to each other. Understanding, giving each other a listening here is very important. Get curious about what is driving the emotion behind that desire. When someone says, no, I want to do this, you should know that, this thing is making that person happy. This person finds joy doing it. Should I stab this person's joy because of my own or at my own detriment? So when conflict arises, seek to understand what is really important to each of you. This goes to both the groom and the bride, that is the husband and the wife. Even for newlyweds, this applies, and people in relationship, this applies as well. So move from the me mindset to we mindset. Start to see things not only from your perspective, but from your perspective of you and your spouse. So don't be too moved by, this is what I want to do. This is what you might always stand your ground in situations, but then let it bend a bit. Not in all situations, but then try to be bendable. Don't be stiff, and try to understanding. This is where understanding seriously comes to play. Cultivate the habit of we doing things together and leave all selfish desires alone. Let selfishness be away from you when it comes to compromise, because we find out that when you're not trying to compromise for one thing or the other, it's all your about selfish acts that swings to compromise. So it should be the we-ishness, not me-ish, or not selfishness. So where you can create daily experiences that transcends to habitual way of interacting, and this becomes a discovery when you're able to channel your communication method to saying, oh, you know what, let's have 8 p.m. to ourselves. Let's not do anything phone. Let's not do anything. Let's just lie down. Let's just talk. Let's just gist. All this becomes habits that, you now find like a routine for yourself, and it makes you happy. You forget that, oh, you already did to your happiness. You already did something that, oh, has been a regular thing for you all the way. So these are ways that you can apply compromise and understand the place of understanding in your marriage. Learning how to concede is an art. So it is knowing what concessions to make, and we'll be showing you how to properly do that. The notion of marriage itself is a compromise, so which sounds more like bleaker than it usually would sound. So when you are married, you are literally taking stock of what you want from life, while your partner takes stocks of what they want from their own life. And you meet in the middle to figure out how to make all those things work together, because you have both found and decided that this is what is the most important. The path up that mountain is mighty steep, but it might become more manageable when couples create some shared handhold. So it's a good idea that you have to agree upon understanding of what it means to compromise about important issues. So it should be a joint decision. When you are compromising, it should be jointly. Do not put yourself at the detriment of making your partner happy. It should be something, there should be a balance to it. There should be a balance to it. It should be a marriage of equals, not a marriage of compromise, or a marriage of not wanting to understand your partner or whatever is saying. It should be a marriage of equals. Being able to be clear about your specific take on a situation and being able to clearly state your wishes and concern is important to finding a workable compromise. Each of you wants to be able to express what they do. Each of you is willing to explain why they want to do something so important to them. But at the point in an ongoing compromise, personal agenda naturally will emerge and work out with the attitude you need in this kind of situation. You may inadvertently privilege your position and imply that what you want in some way may be more important than what your partner needs. By listening attentively, respectfully, you honor what other person thinks is important, and the best outcome of this kind of decision is a win-win action plan that is responsive to the stated concerns. So all I've just been saying in long and short is, when it comes to compromise and understanding, it's a win-win action plan. That is, it's a joint decision. I am having issues with this. You're having issues with this. Table both issues. Table your opinions. Weigh the options. Weigh the consequences. And come to a conclusion. That is the balance that comes with understanding and compromise. No marriage should be full of compromise. And no marriage should be full of one person's thoughts domineering the other. Let there be a balance. Let there be a balance to it. Let things work for both parties. Let everyone be satisfied equally at both ends of the table. It should not be like, oh, I'm risking or sacrificing everything. Compromise should not be all about sacrificing marriage. I want to make this clear once again. There should be a balance to it. For instance, if you love going to the gym, your husband loves going to watch football, do what makes you happy and let everybody be happy. But when it comes to a place of joint compromise, it's something that you have to do for the other person. Let it be a place of understanding. Let it be to a place of understanding. Let's understand each other and come to meaningful conclusions, because that is the whole gain about compromise. That is the whole gain. Socializing as a couple is different from socializing by yourself, and you might find less of that in an instant, or to be social, or when you go for parties and all of that. But sometimes your partner may be unaware of your dislikes and even at some certain social events. So you should learn to compromise even in social times. So finally, before I drag the curtains for today's Family Matters, with K. I'm sure you've definitely learned something that you should put it to good use even in your marriage. So beyond compromise in your marriage, what do you do? What do you stand to hold? What is it? So the first thing is for you to take your time in marriage, talk it through, trust each other, because trust says it all. Understanding says it all. You should be able to trust each other. First, don't merely give a pressure on your spouse for a quick resolution. Make creative solutions, which might take longer to even reach a conclusion, but then results will be definitely worth it. Try to talk it through, have a long sense of identity as a couple, which is important. Don't see things from your personal end. See things and reason as a couple that you are. Find third ways to go about it. Your the first way is that of the man. The second way is that of the woman. Find a third way that would work with both ways already established. So find a third way to demonstrate and give you happiness about what is not just you and it's not just me. It should be about us, you people. So finally, as couples, take out time to talk and listen to find out your spouse's perspective of things. And lastly, don't forget to trust each other, because when you're trusted, you're both prepared to set aside your personal agenda and to find a way forward. This isn't just a good advice for marriage experts, for marriage individuals, for couples, for newlyweds, for those in relationship. It lies in the heart of God's purpose for his children. The Apostle Paul reminds us that let us each other look not only on our own interest but onto the interest of others. You can find this in Philippians chapter 2 verse 4. So if you want a good marriage, compromise. But if you want a great marriage, work together to find that the third way, which is the best, which is the place of understanding. So I emphasize and close with this statement once again. If you want a good marriage, compromise. But if you want a great marriage, work together to find that third way, which comes and boils down to your understanding. Don't forget to join us same time next week for another beautiful and exciting episode of the Family Matters with K here on Lagoon Radio from the hours of 3 to 4 p.m. West African time, broadcasting live from the very heart of Lagos Marina. Do well to join us on all our social media platforms for continuation of the topic for today. On Facebook at Lagoon Radio Nigeria, on Twitter and on Instagram at Lagoonradio.Ng. You can also put a voice to the face you're listening to by subscribing to our YouTube channel LagoonTV and downloading and following and subscribing to our news blog Lagoon.News. Verily, verily, I say unto you, my name is Olumakaiye. See you next week.
You are listening to Lagoon Radio.